Good morning, everyone. Today's topic is portal hypertension. Okay. See, portal venous pressure is the blood pressure in the hepatic portal vein, and the normal portal venous pressure is 5 to 10 mm of mercury. This is the normal portal venous pressure that is present. Okay, and normally the portal venous pressure and the hepatic vein pressure is almost the same. Okay. This is the portal circulation. Before going into the portal circulation, let us speak about the normal circulation. What happens in the normal cardiac cycle? The oxygenated blood from the heart goes to the specific organs, okay? From through the aorta, ascending and descending aorta. And from the aorta, again, it's branched and specific arteries go to the specific organs and they give oxygenated blood, okay? Whereas deoxygenated blood again returns back to the right atrium, okay, and from the right atrium it goes to the right ventricle, and from the right ventricle it goes to the through the pulmonary arteries to the lungs, and there it gets oxygenated, and again it returns through the pulmonary veins into the left atrium, and from the left atrium what is happening? From the left atrium it goes to the left ventricle, and from the left ventricle again it goes into the aorta. This is the cycle, okay? This is the normal cycle. Whereas in portal circulation, what is happening? In portal circulation, the oxygenated blood is coming to the GI tract. And in the GI tract, there are a lot of nutrients and toxins absorbed by the GI tract. Okay? These nutrients and toxins, along with the deoxygenated blood, the deoxygenated blood is rich in nutrients and toxins, both. Okay? This goes to the hepatic health, liver, okay? And in the liver, what is happening again? The liver is acting as a gateway. It is acting as a gateway. It is processing the nutrients and toxins, and then only the blood leaves from the liver through the hepatic veins into the inferior vena cava, and from the inferior vena cava again it goes into the circulation, okay? It goes to the heart, and from the heart to the lungs, gets oxygenated and returns back. That is the process, okay? So in portal circulation, it is not like the general circulation. It is not, the deoxygenated blood is not directly going back to the heart, okay? So it is not directly going back. It is passing through the liver, okay? And in the liver, for example, if we have consumed a meal, now the blood is rich in glucose, okay? And this glucose, excessive glucose, is again bad for the body. So if there is any excessive glucose and all, this glucose is converted into glycogen and stored in the liver, okay? And whereas the toxins, they are metabolized and they are sent to the renal part, from where the toxins are eliminated. So the liver is acting as a gateway where everything, all the metabolism of the nutrients consumed is taking place, whereas in the toxins also they are getting deneutralized and being sent to the renal elimination, okay? This is happening in portal circulation. So as you can see now, this is the hepatic portal vein. This is the hepatic portal vein, and this is the spleen. From the spleen, this splenic vein goes and empties into the hepatic portal vein, and this is the GI tract. This is the left half of the transverse colon. This is the right half of the transverse colon, and the left half is drained by this, meaning the ascending colon, the small intestine, and all this is drained by superior mesenteric vein into the hepatic portal vein. And whereas here, the lower part, the descending colon and all, they are drained from what? Inferior, the upper half of the rectum and the descending colon, everything is being drained by the inferior mesenteric vein into the hepatic portal vein. So from the splenic vein it is coming, from the gastric vein it is draining, from the inferior mesenteric vein it is draining into hepatic portal vein, and from the superior mesenteric vein it is draining into the hepatic portal vein. This hepatic portal vein again goes into the liver, and in the liver, as we talked about, the metabolism takes place and the toxin deneutralizing is taking place, and then after all this process is happening, then it is being drained into the hepatic veins, which come together and drain into the inferior vena cava. This is the portal circulation, okay? Going to the next slide. See, what is portal hypertension? Right now we have discussed about the normal portal pressure. How much is the normal portal pressure? And we have also discussed about the portal circulation. Okay. Now coming to portal hypertension. Whenever there is an increase in the blood pressure within the system of veins called the portal venous system, then you call it as portal hypertension. And generally it is greater than 12 mm of mercury. Okay. And what is the normal? Normal is from 5 to 10 mm of mercury. So that's what we have talked about. So it is defined as the elevation of the hepatic venous pressure gradient greater than 12 mm of mercury. These are various causes that cause portal hypertension, and they can be broadly classified into post-hepatic, intrahepatic, and prehepatic. Okay, the causes can lie with either post-hepatic causes can be there in post-hepatic causes, intrahepatic causes. Intrahepatic causes means inside the liver, and prehepatic means before. Okay, before entering the hepatic in hepatic region. Okay. And what is happening if any obstruction to the portal vein or portal flow is happening, the pressure gradient is increasing. When the pressure gradient is increasing, what is happening? Portal hypertension is occurring. And when portal hypertension occurs, the pressure gradient is more. So what can be there? Backflow can be there. As there is now variation in pressure gradient has increased. So backflow can be there. And whenever there is backflow, wherever the portal circulation is connecting to the systemic areas, like in the second part of the, where the bile duct opens there, what will happen? Esophageal varices can occur when there is backflow. And near the umbilicus, what is happening? Caput medusae can occur. Okay. There is a connection of the portal circulation with the systemic circulation at three areas. One is at the entry point of the or opening of the bile duct, near the bile duct, opening of the bile duct in the second part of the duodenum, or second part is near the surrounding the umbilicus. Caput medusae occurs right there, that area, and the other area is in the anal canal. Okay, so you are getting esophageal varices, and whereas coming to the umbilicus you're getting caput medusae, and whereas coming to the anal region you're getting hemorrhoids whenever there is portal hypertension. This is the areas which the portal circulation is coming in contact with the systemic circulation. Okay. So the causes, as we talked about, they are broadly classified into the prehepatic, intrahepatic, and post-hepatic. Okay, the prehepatic causes, one of the most common prehepatic causes, the portal vein thrombosis. Due to the thrombosis, there is obstruction to the flow, so there is no good reach of the deoxygenated blood, which is rich in nutrients and toxins. It doesn't enter the hepatic area because there is a thrombus which is blocking it. Okay, thrombus formation is there and it is blocking it. Pancreatitis, the other cause, trauma can occur, and hypercoagulable states. These are a few causes of the or pre-hepatic causes of the portal hypertension. Intrahepatic, nothing but infection with cystostomiasis, okay, congenital hepatic fibrosis, sarcoidosis, myeloproliferative diseases, drugs, toxins, and most important, cirrhosis. In all this cirrhosis, fibrosis, and all, what is happening? There is ultimately what is happening? The liver is losing its normal morphology. The hepatocellular morphology is lost. Whenever the hepatocellular morphology is lost, what is happening? The normal functioning of the liver will get affected, right? Because the hepatic cell, it lost its normal morphology, so it is not able to do what its job or a designated job is. So then you are going into hepatic failure. Post-hepatic causes, hepatic vein thrombosis. In prehepatic causes, we have talked about. I'll show you prehepatic portal vein thrombosis. We have talked. So in portal vein thrombosis, as the obstruction occurs, same. Post-hepatic, hepatic vein thrombosis, like in Budd-Chiari syndrome, due to the thrombus formation and the flow into the inferior vena cava gets reduced. Okay, constrictive pericarditis and right-sided heart failure. These are volume overloaded states. Okay. And what can be the clinical manifestations? Ascites can occur. How does ascites occur? Due to the increased pressure gradient, what is happening? There is backflow of the fluid, and when there is backflow of fluid, what is happening? It is going into the free spaces, into the peritoneal cavity, and into the peritoneal cavity, this free fluid accumulates and it causes ascites. And sometimes this free fluid can again be invaded by any bacteria or anything, and it can cause spontaneous bacterial peritonitis. Okay. Hypersplenism. How is hypersplenism occurring? See, the pressure gradient in the portal increases. Portal hypertension, the pressure gradient increases. As the pressure gradient increases, what is happening? There is backflow of blood from the connection. What for the portal vein? What is connecting from the spleen? Splenic vein. So there is backflow of blood, and hypersplenism can occur. Okay. Increased portosystemic shunting. We have talked about it earlier. I have told you near the esophagus, it is causing esophageal varices because the portal circulation is coming in contact to the systemic circulation at these three areas. So at these three areas, whenever there is portal hypertension, there is a reverse flow, and varices can be occurring because when the reverse flow is there and the pressure gradient is increased, what is happening? The veins get distended. So esophageal varices are occurring in the esophagus, hemorrhoids are occurring at the anal canal, and caput medusae surrounding the umbilicus. See, this is the caput medusae. See the appearance. Why is it called Medusa? Medusa is nothing but Greek mythological creature which has snakes for a head. Okay, so same way surrounding the umbilicus, it looks like that. So that is why it is named as Caput Medusae. It is a presence or appearance of distended and engorged superficial epigastric veins. You can see in this picture clearly, quite clearly. See how the veins are distended and engorged. Okay, which are seen radiating from the umbilicus. They are seen radiating from the umbilicus across the abdomen. Hence the name caput medusae. Okay. Hepatic encephalopathy can occur. How does hepatic encephalopathy occurs? See, as we talked, from the GI tract, all the nutrients as well as toxins are coming. So whenever there is any obstruction or any cause that is causing portal hypertension, these are not processed in the liver as they should be. So the toxins are getting built up in the blood, which are going into the systemic circulation, and they can cause the blood-brain barrier, and this increased load of toxins after crossing the blood-brain barrier can cause encephalitis, hepatic encephalopathy. Okay, hepatorenal failure can occur, and gastrointestinal bleed. These varices that are occurring at the three places, what will happen? Finally, the veins, after getting distended, what happening? The chance of them getting rupture and bleed occurring can be present. Okay, and when this occurs, what happens when bleeding occurs? Platelets are consumed, so there are reduced level of platelets. Blood cells that help to form blood, this means coagulation factors, they are depleted. Okay, and white blood cells also are depleted. So what can be the symptoms? Abdominal pain can be there, black tarry colored stools can be there. Okay, because due to the GI bleed. Okay, the stools can be black tarry colored. Okay, melena can occur, hematemesis. If there are esophageal varices, hematemesis can occur, and as the liver is losing its morphology, liver cell is losing its morphology, jaundice can occur, pruritus can occur, and gynecomastia can occur. I'll show you a picture where it depicts all the signs of liver cell failure. See, these are the grades of gynecomastia. This is the grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and grade 4. And what are the other features? Fatigue, increased irritability, altered sleep pattern, weight loss of appetite, and spider angiomata. See, here you can see the spider angiomata spider. See, these are all the features of portal hypertension. These are all features of portal hypertension. Liver cell. See, these are all the features of the portal hypertension. See, you can see the meaning the portal hypertension leading to liver cell failure, and then the signs of these are the signs of liver cell failure. As you come from alopecia can be then, see, alopecia can be there, and scleral icterus can be there. In jaundice, you have icterus in the sclera, right? You look for icterus in the sclera, and fetor hepaticus. That smells like fresh open corpse. Fetor hepaticus, spider navy. We have seen in the previous slide, right? Spider navy can be there, and gynecomastia can occur. Jaundice. You can just see the skin for jaundice. Check the skin for jaundice. Yellowish discoloration of the skin. Okay, and loss of secondary sexual characters. Okay, so pubic hair can be loss of secondary sexual hair can be lost. Okay, and ascites can be there. Distended veins like caput medusae can be seen. Okay, hemorrhoids can be there. Bleeding tendency, and when this bleeding is occurring, what is happening? All the blood products are getting depleted, and anemia can occur. Okay, and edema can occur. Ultimately, edema can occur due to the organ failure. And how do you diagnose it? The main diagnosis is by measuring the portal venous pressure. Okay, that is done by catheterization. Catheterization of the portal vein and the hepatic vein, and you measure the portal hypertension and difference in pressure gradient. That you will measure. Okay, by that, initially you can diagnose it. And blood count. Blood count will give you all the normal blood indices which are being abnormal. And liver function test also, the liver function test will be deranged. Okay. And esophagogastroduodenoscopy, why do you do it? You do it for looking for any esophageal varices, okay, or any hemorrhoids or anything like that. Ultrasonography, you can look for hypersplenism, and as well as any cirrhosis in the liver, and as well as any accumulation of free fluid in the peritoneal cavity, that is ascites. Okay, and MRI also will give you the same picture. You can look for any organomegaly or any abnormality in the liver or the spleen, and you can also look for the fluid. Okay, liver angiography can be done, celiac mesenteric arteriography can be done, and splenic portogram can be done. These are the few diagnostic criteria. The first and foremost being catheterization of the portal vein and measuring of the pressure gradient. Treatment, endoscopic therapy. In endoscopic therapy, what are you doing? Banding and sclerotherapy in case of bleeding esophageal varices. Okay. See how the banded varices are there. The banded varices, this is scope. It goes, and this rubber-like structure will surround the varices and will isolate it and will cut off the blood supply to it. Okay. And sclerotherapy, this is the scope, and from the sclerotherapy needle projects out, and the sclerosing agent is injected into the varices. Okay. And see, after injection of the sclerosing agent into the varix, what is happening? Clot will become like this after the injection. Okay. And medication, beta blockers. Beta blockers like propranolol, what will it do? It will reduce the portal pressure. Okay. And lactulose. Lactulose, where do you give lactulose? You will give it to treat mental confusion in case of hepatic encephalopathy. Lifestyle modifications also have to be done. And this is the major surgical modality which you correct in portal hypertension. See, there is a portal systemic shunting. This tip surgery, transjugular intrahepatic portosystemic shunting. How this is done? There is a stent that communicates the portal vein to the hepatic vein. Okay, so that the restriction of the flow doesn't occur. Okay. So in this way, through the stunting of the portal vein to the hepatic vein, through transjugular intrahepatic portosystemic shunting, you can guarantee the flow from the portal vein into the hepatic vein, and from the hepatic vein into the inferior vena cava. This is the surgical modality by which you correct portal hypertension. Okay. This is the normal portal circulation. Devascularization also can be done. Splenectomy is done in hypersplenism, and in ascites, a drain is attached into the peritoneal cavity where the free fluid is there. Into that space, we go with the needle, we do what do you do? Parasynthesis. And in case of liver failure, in case of cirrhosis like that, liver transplant has to be done. Okay, this is about portal hypertension. So to summarize, what is the normal portal hypertension? So normal portal pressure, it is around 5 to 10 mm of Hg. When it is more than 12 mm of Hg, you call it as portal hypertension. And there are three types of causes for that: prehepatic, hepatic, and post-hepatic. Okay, and what is the major modality of treatment? Major modality of treatment is treatment of the complications, like if there is any portosystemic communication. Three areas portosystemic communication is there, where you get varices, caput medicae, and hemorrhoids. Okay, whenever there is esophageal varices, what are you doing? The treatment, how you are doing it? You are going for sclerotherapy or bandage. Okay, when there are hemorrhoids, you can go for hemorrhoidectomy or anything like that. And if the supportive treatment, like if the blood products are consumed and anemia occurs, we have to go for transfusion if there is acute loss or more loss of blood. Okay, and what is the surgical method of correction? Surgical method of correction, you will go for what? Transjugular intrahepatic portosystemic shunting, tip surgery. Okay. Okay, this is it. And what is the diagnostic criteria? Diagnostic criteria first is catheterization of the portal vein and measurement of the portal pressures in the portal vein and the hepatic vein. Okay, and to check for the differences. And the other, the imaging, ultrasound, MRI. Okay, in the ultrasound, what are you going to look for? You're going to look for if there is any organomegaly like splenomegaly or anything like that. And if there is any cirrhosis, you can find out. If there is any ascites, you can find out. Okay. These are the few diagnostic criteria and for portal hypertension. Okay. Any doubts? Any doubts? Any doubts? How to measure portal hypertension? How to measure portal hypertension? We've talked about it, right? We'll catheterize the portal vein and you measure the. That is the exact diagnostic criteria. Non-invasively, you can look for all the complications that can be present or the causes that cause portal hypertension. But in order to correctly diagnose portal hypertension, you have to do invasive catheterization only. Okay. Any other doubts? See, there is in gynecomastia, it generally in portal hypertension. Why gynecomastia is occurring? Because it is a sign of liver cell failure. In liver cell failure, your there is the change in the morphology of the hepatocellular structure. When in the change in morphology of the hepatocellular structure occurs, liver cell normal liver functions. What is that? Coagulation. What is the normal liver functions? Coagulation factors and all rest are there, right? Secretion of the. uh, Can you see me? Yeah. See, because yeah, now I can. I now I think you can see me. Yeah. So there is difference in the sexual hormones also. There is difference in the balance of the sexual hormones also, like the testosterone and estrogen. When there is difference in the balance of the testosterone and estrogen in liver cell failure, then gynecomastia occurs. Okay, there is a tip in the scales of the balance between the testosterone and estrogen. That is a major cause for gynecomastia. And how to measure portal hypertension non-invasively, we have talked about it. Uh, yeah, even the sexual symptoms in portal hypertension, secondary sexual characters loss and all also, because the testosterone level comes down and the testosterone levels increase. Due to the tip in that only, the sexual like cause for gynecomastia and cause for loss of secondary sexual characters like the pubic hair, axillary hair, and all facial hair, and all will be seen in the liver failure. Okay, the testosterone scale is tipping down and the estrogen this thing is increasing. That is the cause. And how to measure portal hypertension non-invasively, we have talked about it. The correct method is invasive only, but if you want to go, you can go for elastography. Elastography you can see, and in the other imaging techniques also you can see. But the major thing is, even elastography doesn't give you, because not all patients will be willing for catheterization. In such kind of patients, we can go for elastography. Okay, but the accurate thing is catheterization and measurement only. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, thank you. There are no more questions, I guess. Okay, I'll conclude the session. Okay, I thought treatment of hepatic encephalopathy. Yeah, in the treatment of hepatic encephalopathy, what do you do? What is happening as such in hepatic encephalopathy? What is happening? The normal liver, the gateway function of the liver is not happening, because there is restriction of the deoxygenated blood into the liver. Either the cause might be hepatic, pre-hepatic, or post-hepatic. Okay, what is happening? The ultimate, the gateway nature of the liver is not working properly because of this causes. So what is happening? The toxins, they, due to the increase in pressure, they re-enter the systemic circulation without getting properly metabolized and removed from the liver. It is sent to the kidneys and it's eliminated. But that is not happening in this, because of the increase in pressure. What is it is coming back into the systemic circulation. So the toxin build in the systemic circulation is increasing. As the toxin build increases, it will cross the blood-brain barrier, and after it crosses the blood-brain barrier, what is happening? It is affecting the brain, and it is causing hepatic encephalopathy. In hepatic encephalopathy, how do you treat? Lactulose. Lactulose you give, okay, and you just measure, just you give supportive treatment, any antibiotic course and fluids, and if the patient is in liver failure, so if needed, any albumin transmission, because in liver failure, what else will come? The albumin. Okay, the albumin synthesis also will come down. So there is decrease in albumin, and if there is decrease in albumin, what is happening? Free fluid accumulation also will be there. When free fluid accumulation will be there, you'll go into volume overload state, and in volume overload state, what is happening? Again, congestive hepatopathy will occur. Okay, in order to prevent that, you do all the supportive measurements, all the supportive things, what you can give. Okay, that's all. There is no other specific treatment for that. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.